come on now, Brainiacs. Wouldn't be the holiday season without a Blabber Brain show, Christmas, New Year's, holiday blowout extravaganza show, would it? I mean, it's an annual tradition. Today, we're going to be spreading the Yuletide cheer with Trevor Tyson, host of Trevor Talks, who's normally the one asking the questions. So we're going to kind of flip the script on him. You're not going to want to miss that interview. Let's do this.
Blabber Brains.
And welcome to the annual Christmas, New Year's, holiday extravaganza blowout Blabber Brain show or something like that. I don't know. I'm your host, Michael M. Kadrie, and the guy, jolly guy over there in the fabulous glasses and Santa hat is the Big M. What is happening, sir?
Chestnuts are roasting on an open fire.
You better put that fire out
Jack
before you get
Frost is nipping at your nose.
Yeah, well, you are the crooner, sir. So
having my eggnog.
There you go. I'm sure it's spiked with something.
Yeah, I don't drink regular. It's too thick and pasty. You have to. This is the Evan Williams.
Okay. Now, do you buy the pre-mixed Evan Williams one, or do you pour it in yourself, or do you put?
I didn't know Evan Williams has a has one that you could add. Well, I add to it.
Right.
But Evan Williams, I think, of course, it has a little bit of whiskey and brandy, and I think rum. I don't think it's very strong. I'd have to see like it's 15 proof or something like that. And I add a little more bourbon to it, bring it up to probably about 40 proof.
Well, I know, because I know they make the pre-mixed like Southern Comfort stuff, but I think some of the Southern Comfort stuff doesn't have. I don't think that's like
Southern
the stuff you buy in the state store. I think is pre-mixed, but you can buy stuff like even in the grocery store that's obviously not alcohol.
No, but that one's pretty good because I don't like eggnog, like regular eggnog, and I never drank it until maybe a few years ago when I actually decided to try the Evan Williams, and they evened it out. It used to be you drink it and you go, oh my God, you could just smell their bourbon. Now it's, they're adding a little brandy and a couple of things. Probably killed off a few people. It just was a very overpowering flavor. But the Southern Comfort is good. But because I tried it for the first time, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago. I can't remember. And I have had a pint of Southern Comfort here, and I can't remember why I bought it. It's for some recipe, and I never use it. It's been sitting here for a good year. And then, I'm like, I got the carton out. When you pour it out, it's pretty thick. So I added in the Southern Comfort, and it was actually really, really good. You put a little nutmeg on the top of it, but you need that to thin it out, not just for
put
the
Southern
alcohol.
Comfort like in sugar cookies or something like that. Put it in your cookies when you're baking or something.
Yeah, you know what? It works great for making cookies if you're making cookies over there. In the next few weeks is to use frangelica. That is really good. What you end up, if you're making 2 dozen, say, you put a tablespoon of it in. It's going to be cooked out anyhow,
right.
But that's a hazelnut liqueur, and it's a slight, and it has some sweetness to it, and it really works well for chocolate chip cookies. Not bad in peanut butter, but chocolate chip, using some of that. You don't want to add too much because then the dough's not going to set properly. Not that I ever make my own dough, I buy that tub.
Buy the Pillsbury stuff.
Yeah, I buy the stuff in the tub, and I have an ice cream scooper, and I'll make them. And that way there, I don't eat 3 dozen of them in one night. I'll make maybe 4 or 5 at a time, decent sized ones. And then at least that way there, I'm not, because I'll sit there and I make 2 dozen. By the end of the day, all 2 dozen are gone. I mean,
and you're feeling pretty good by the end of the night too.
Well, no, I mean, not unless I'm drinking some, but no, I mean, a bit of what you're adding to the liqueur to it is just such a small amount. Right. And it's only about, it's not even it's probably an equivalent of like a half a shot for 2 dozen cookies anyhow. So it wouldn't get you buzzed anyway.
Well, in typical Mike Kadrie fashion, I always add a little bit of Gentleman Jack to my eggnog, and a little bit of nutmeg on top of that. It's the and I can't drink a lot of it because it's just so rich and thick and stuff like that. But if I have like 1 tall glass of that, I'm pretty satisfied for the evening. So
yeah, I can't sit there and drink it all night either. A couple of these, if you bike it a little bit, it's not bad. It's tradition, I guess. not from me, but I mean, I guess some families really get into this, and we never did growing up.
Right.
I don't recall ever having eggnog growing up at any of the family
Oh, I always
get-togethers.
did. Yeah.
We
Never. And I
we
was
never
always
did.
too young to have it spiked, but you know what I mean. But
See,
I always had it.
we didn't even go that far. I don't ever recall having it. I think the first time I tried it was maybe about 15 years ago, and I
Right.
was making it, and adding brandy to it, and I came across the recipe, and I was like, okay, this isn't bad for a couple glasses or a glass like this at night. And I could do this for a few weeks and then be good for the next,
Yeah.
kind of like me eating a ham.
Yeah.
After Easter, I'm good for the next 364 days.
Yeah. I can't like drink eggnog at like, let's say, the middle of summer. It just doesn't seem right, whatever. But anyways, I want to do I was watching some holiday movies recently because that's just what you do this time of year, right? And I know I had this conversation on social media before, but I wanted to talk about it here because it just made me think. Like I was watching Elf and watching Planes, Trains, and Automobiles was, just two movies that are just hysterical. You can name a lot of movies that are funny for the season, but those two kind of stick out as being gut busters. But it just made me think. Why, like, when's the last time you really belly laughed at a movie? Have
Uh,
there been any recent movies that you just like laughed hysterically at?
I'm gonna tell you what. In the last almost 3 years now, I haven't seen that many movies as far as new
Okay,
ones.
go back 10 years.
Um,
Can you name any?
I don't know. I can't even go back and name anything for. I mean, the ones that cracked me up the most were, well, I was younger too, and that might have something to do with it, but were probably from made in the 70s or the 80s. And of course,
Well,
that's when I saw
that's my
more movies
point.
back in.
I'm, I don't want to blanket the world or the country by saying, uh, or asking the question, have we lost our sense of humor? I mean, I'm not saying that there's not comedies out there. There's, like, as we know from whenever we had Rocky Laporte on the show, that people know that I'm working on a golf comedy, and I wouldn't consider the movie to be a gut buster, belly laughing, and I would, wish that's the way it kind of turned out, but it's pretty funny. I mean, it's got a lot of good comical parts to it, and it'll make you laugh. But like when I think about how hard I was laughing at Planes, Trains, and Automobiles or Elf and stuff like that, no matter how many times I watch those movies, or I can, you can name a dozen other movies from 20 years ago. Um, there I can't recall a recent movie where I laughed the same way. And like, I'm just
Yeah,
trying to figure out why that is. Is it just the
everything's been
fact that,
done. I mean, there's,
well,
every
but yeah, but
scenario has
everything,
been done.
yeah, I know, but forget about the scenario that you can redo stories. I mean, every story just about in Hollywood is a retelling of a different story of another story. But it's the writing. It's like to me, I shouldn't say that. The funniest movies to me as of recent in the last 10 years have probably been like, animated movies, of all the things. And some of those are pretty funny, but I still wouldn't call them like belly laughing, hysterical movies. Um, I don't know. I just don't know what it is. And it's just a weird phenomenon where there were so many movies from this, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and maybe going into early 2000 that were hysterical movies that were just so funny. And
Yeah.
I just even remember, like, Tom Hanks obviously doesn't do comedies anymore, although he has a recent movie out that I think he filmed in Pittsburgh here that's a comedy, but it's one of those highbrow comedies. You're not going to laugh your ass off at it. Michael Keaton doesn't do that anymore. And a lot of movies he was in were pretty darn funny movies. Um, is it the actors? Is it the writers? These like millennial writers that just don't have a sense of humor and don't know how to write? I don't know
Maybe
what
we're
it
not,
is.
yeah, but maybe because we're a little older, we're not seeing those movies that maybe some of the younger people are seeing. See, I don't know. I really don't, in the last few years, I haven't really kept up on the
Well, see, I have. I
movies.
mean,
And
I always like to watch trailers and I always like to see what's up and coming and what's out there. if something looked good enough, I'd probably want to go see it. It's like most of the laughs that I've had throughout movies were not comedies. It's just, like even like in some of the Avenger movies, or I mean the Marvel movies, like Guardians of the Galaxy. There's some pretty funny parts in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. But that's not a comedy. It's in Thor Ragnarok there was a lot of funny moments in that, but again, not a comedy. I don't know what it is. It was just on my mind. It's just I can't quite put my finger on it. And maybe it's the times that we're in, because I read a post just today. Steve Carell posted it. It was a statement by Mindy Kaling, who said The Office could never be made today. It would just offend too many people if it were made today. And she's 100% correct. So I think that points to the fact that I know there's no denying. I guess it all depends on your taste of comedy, but by and large, most people who like The Office think it was a pretty funny show, including me, right?
Yeah.
So does that mean that comedy has changed, or people have changed where they're just so easily offended that you can't joke about certain things?
I don't, and I don't even know if I buy into that. I think the biggest thing is when we see posts making reference back to, say, the Jeffersons, which was a spinoff of All in the Family.
Right.
And it's different when it's put out that way than versus real life to me. Like I could remember, when I was friends with John Cardo, I mean, we were close for decades. We'd kid each other. He'd make fun of me about being Polish, and he might see some game that says, "Oh, it's from kids 13 and older, and Polish people 30 to 35, so 30 and older. So you should be able to play." And it's just all kidding around. But I remember one time when I worked for this company that sold liposuction equipment many years ago. I remember this not an accounting director, it's a small company, it's one person, and she was pissed off about something, and with a billing situation with a doctor who had a Polish last name like me, and she goes, "I've had enough of this dumb Polak." No. And I said, "You do know that I'm Polish too." She says, "Well, are you 100% Polish?" I says, "No, I'm about half." She said, "Well, then that's okay." And I'm going to tell you what, as much as you can make a
that's okay.
Yeah, no, you're okay. No, she said, "You're okay." You don't count in that mix of that. I'm going to tell you what, that's probably really the only time in my life that I've heard something like that where it was actually the way she said it was for a real insult. I have to admit, it got under my skin, and I almost snapped on her. But when they laid us off, when the company was dissolving here in Pittsburgh and the family-owned part was going back to California, and I let go. I'm not going to say what I did, but I walked in her office because she was from that part of the company, and she came out here. Of course, she was having an affair with the married vice president.
And you took a dump on her desk.
No, I'm not going to sit here and say where they might bleep us out here. If there's younger people who will watch this, but I was pretty insulting to her, and I was swearing at her, and I didn't yell. I just said it in this kind of conversation, just to insult the shit out of her. And I never would do something like, especially at an employer. But I have to admit, now, if somebody I don't know is out there yelling about Polish people, I don't care. But if you're saying it and I'm there and you're talking about it,
they're trying to be like make it a derogatory
I wasn't
statement.
Sure if she was here because the guy ended up being right. The doctor ended up being right. And I was on his side telling stories. So I don't know if she's saying a comment and didn't know that I was nearby and it was to me and him, or to him, or just to me. But I have to admit that did really tick me off. And but as far as on TV shows, I loved All in the Family. And when Archie ripped on the meathead for being Polish all the time, I got a kick out because it was.
It was just in comedy. It wasn't trying to be hurtful. It was on TV. Yeah, it wasn't real life. It wasn't something that was actually going on. So, just like I got a kick out of the Jeffersons when George Jefferson always ripped on Wilson, their neighbor up above, about being married to a black woman, but he'd always rip on him about being white and fat. Right. And I got a kick. He ripped on about eating or being white, and I thought it was because it was funny. It wasn't.
Yeah, it was funny because it was, but it wasn't. it wasn't in real life where somebody was actually saying that as an insult.
But see, that's the
TV.
point. That's the point. And I think to what Mindy was saying, that the reason that stuff like that won't go today is because people take it too personally. They're not going to sit back and watch it as something that's supposed to be funny and should be funny. They're going to take it personal of things that are being said like that. And that's a problem. That we all need to laugh. We all, and the more we laugh and the harder we laugh, I think the better our lives will be. Everybody's just so serious right now, and the country being divided and stuff like that. It's like we need a release, and I don't know, maybe somebody. I'm not saying it's going to be me because I'm not sure if I would be in that position, but it needs to write one of those just old time type of funny movies where you just don't care if you're offending anybody. It's just, if it's funny, it's funny. If it offends someone, oh well. It's unapologetic, because it's not meant to offend anybody. You're not doing it in a hurtful way. You're not trying to be mean to anybody. You're just trying to be funny, and maybe we need something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Now, what I think a lot of times too is I don't think as many people are that offended. I think somebody out there to the extreme is making it an issue that people.
Oh yeah, everybody's looking to be offended.
They're looking for that. They've complained about it. But I think the average person probably isn't that offended if it's meant at satire. I mean, it's different if you had, somebody was going out there and it was a movie about murdering Polish people versus Archie Bunker making fun. He made fun. Whatever he was, he made fun of every nationality and religion out there. It was just either if you weren't exactly what he was, he had a rip for everybody. And I just got a kick out of it.
Well, and this is going to be a bold statement, and a lot of people will probably agree with it, and a lot of people probably won't agree with it. But, there's, and I'm trying to figure out a good way how to put this. I think everybody would agree that, I don't say everybody, I think a lot of people would agree that most people who are offended by things are looking for reasons to be offended. Like, I don't think it really truly offends them or affects them. I think what they're hearing doesn't sound right to them. And because a lot of times you'll hear people who are offended for something that's said that has nothing to do with them, right? And it's usually white people being offended by something that somebody says about a black person or about a Native American or about a Chinese person, whatever. And if you say something, it's almost like they feel as though they should be offended for the person. So I don't think they really feel offended. I think they feel as though it doesn't sound right, so they need to stick up and protect those people, for whatever reason. So, and I'm not saying that's in every case, in every situation, but I just think that there are people that are looking for reasons to be offended when there's no offense there's no offense made, there's no offense intended. But yet people take offense to it. I don't know. I think we just need to grow up.
I think there are times where somebody could say, you know what, we're not that many people are being offended by it, but it's not the right thing to do, or it's not the right thing to say. Well, I mean, there might be things that you could hit around with about being Polish that might not, I've heard that doesn't offend me, but doesn't mean that it just like with the coworker that I had, even if that didn't irritate me, I was okay with it. Like, yeah, she's just some idiot. It's still not right. And I think sometimes a lot of people they can't draw that line, and they make it more than what it's supposed to be. And sometimes if you make it more than it's supposed to be, you'll pick up some people who weren't thinking anything about it, all of a sudden now, are offended by it, or they're upset about it, or whatever the scenario is out there. I mean, people, it's different kidding around with somebody that than versus making an insult to somebody. because you're wanting to hurt their feelings.
Right. I just
It's
think
a completely
we need
different
more
thing.
comedy. We need more reasons to laugh. We need maybe a modern day Weird Al Yankovic rising up in the ranks of the music world. I don't know.
I don't know if
So
there's going to be another one of him. At least not anybody that had the success that he has,
probably not.
or
And maybe
still
he's
has. I
got
mean, I'm
maybe
blown away by. I never
he's
realized
still
how success.
relevant.
Yeah, but the crazy thing is when I see that even in all these years that have gone by since the 80s, every album he's put out has at least gone gold. That blows me away. Some have gone platinum. I don't know anybody that's bought any of his records before, but somebody is. I remember when I was with Ann, her son, when he was, 10, 11 years old, Weird Al Yankovic put out some album and he's listening to it.
Yeah, he did that Toto cover with Weezer, and he's got a movie now out with Daniel Radcliffe playing him, and
Yeah,
so
I
I
heard
mean,
about that. I got to see that.
he's still relevant, I guess. But anyways, I want to boast about something real quick before we have to take a break. So let's cue it.
Blabber Boast.
All right, since it's the Christmas season, there's something I have to boast about because it was a Christmas gift I got last year that forget about Christmas time. It's probably the best purchase, and that's a pretty bold statement, the best purchase of anything I've ever had. And even though it was a gift, but I'm talking about the Ninja Foodi air fryer. The air fryer has been a game changer.
Yeah,
I mean, the just making chicken in there, and you name it, anything I put in there, it just turns out like better than anything I could cook on the stovetop or in the oven or on the grill. It's amazing. And I know I was late to the party. Air fryers have been around for a while, and my sister had one and was boasting about it. And oh, you got to get an air fryer. I'm like, what's the big deal? It's just an air fryer, whatever. I'm telling you right now, people, if you don't have an air fryer, ask to get one for Christmas or buy one for your significant other for Christmas, or you buy it for your kids and then tell them that you're going to use it all the time. I don't care. Just you will thank me later. Get yourself an air fryer for Christmas. And I mean, there's unlimited things you can make, and I'm constantly looking up recipes of things that I've made other traditional ways before, and so I can figure out ways to make it in the air fryer. And like the Ninja Foodi is like more than just an air fryer, right? You can bake in it. You can do your uh, pressure cooking in it. You can do your steaming. It has like 9 different functions that you can do in it. And I've used it of all the 9 or 10 functions that it has. I think I've used only maybe 4 or 5, like half of them. And so I need to probably experiment and find other ways to use some of the other ways to use the Ninja Foodi. But I would recommend everybody going out and getting one or asking for one for Christmas. So how about you? Anything you want to boast about today?
Well, I do, but it's not here yet. It'll be here on Friday. So
Okay.
I'm just going to tell everybody they changed the recipe on the Evan Williams Egg Nog. It's different now, and it's a lot better. I mean, a lot of people, didn't like it because it was just so powerful of a flavor of bourbon to it. Now it's been nice and smoothed out. It's not that expensive. It's under $15 a bottle at wherever you buy your fine spirits and wines. It's getting hard to find, actually. I know that I was going to buy another bottle of this locally, and we're here in Pennsylvania, so the state owns the liquor stores, and they're out of it already. I don't know what I'm going to do. We're only in early December. I probably would drink 3 more bottles of this before the end of the year.
Well, you just have to keep an eye out for it when you're out and about.
Yeah, forget about the Pennsylvania Dutch. That's out there. It tastes like suntan lotion. I mean, it is. It's like you feel like you should start rubbing on your body.
I've never had it.
What happened, Mike? I went out.
I don't know.
There we go.
I don't know. You must have bumped something.
Maybe. So the Evan Williams is the way to go if you want alcohol in it. Obviously, if you don't want alcohol, You don't want this Evan Williams product. You could go with the Southern Comfort. It's pretty good. It's in the store. Although if you want to beef it up a little bit, adding some Southern Comfort, and it really doesn't increase the heat that much. It's a good mix.
Cool. All right. Well, let's end this segment.
Blabber Boast.
All right. So we have a different kind of guest coming up after the break here, Trevor Tyson. And, you know, I really love this season so far because we're really getting a good mix of guests on. And as a teaser, wait till next month and the next Blabber Brain show. We got another really special guest coming up. But, you know, we're trying to always expand our audience and also expose the people that we have interviews with to our audience. So, and I think Trevor fits that bill. I think you'll be intrigued by his story. He's a young guy, self-made guy, and listen to his story. And so make sure you stick around for that interview. But first, before we go away for a break, I thought we'd have to be nice for the holiday seasons to do a little bit of self-indulgence and, you know, pimping of our co-host, the Big M over there. Last year when we had our Christmas special, you weren't done with the video yet. I was putting this video together for you and it wasn't done in time for the show. So we couldn't feature it on the show, but we did talk about it. So we wanted to show you right now the Big M's music video for Can I Bring Them Home for Christmas? So
damn, I thought you wanted me to play my flutophone tonight.
You can play that all you want, though, but everybody else is going to watch the video right now, so you can play. Yeah,
you'd probably be better off watching the video. I hope you like it.
All right, we'll be back just after this.
Lay my head to rest, and before I close my eyes, look out my bedroom window, I see a star so bright. All these years have passed, and it still don't feel the same. Wish I can have one thing this year. Can I bring them home for Christmas? The timing feels just right. My grandma's in the kitchen, I'm helping by her side. My grandpa brought his guitar, and I get to play along. Those were the best days of my life. My father was a flawed man, hidden from most to see. The bottle and a fast car, at 7 he left me. In between the good times, his hands upon my mom. There's some things I need to hear. Can I bring them home for Christmas? I'm standing all alone, wondering what will happen when he walks right through the door. Did he make it up to heaven? Did he have enough good deeds? Wonder what he thinks of my life. I'm so proud of you, my son. My passing was the best thing for your life. Can I bring them home for Christmas? One day is all I need. Put my arms around them is the only gift I need. Forget about the presents that lay beneath the tree. Make it the best day of my life. Make it the best day of my life.
have it. The Big M's, Can I Bring Them Home for Christmas? It's a very heartwarming song. And boy, you are really reaching the depths of your soul with your music lately. Your scars are beautiful. That video is still out there and people are still yammering about it, and rightfully so. I think it was the right video for the right song, but I think people are more attracted to the song than the video. It's just a really good song. And like I said, you're just peeling back the shield of the Big M and letting people see your heart a little bit. And I think Can I Bring Them Home for Christmas and Your Scars Are Beautiful, as well as a lot of the other songs on your EP, Just Me and Hopefully You. Is that right? Did I get that title right?
Yeah, you have it right.
I thought so. So make sure you get it where all music is streaming.
Yep.
You have it on all platforms, correct?
I think it's on
it's free
33 different. Hey, I think it's on 33 different platforms, with about 25 of them I've never heard of before.
So there's no excuse for not listening to the Big M's music. You just, wherever music is. It's kind of like, was that Sam Goody's or Camelot or something? Wherever fine music is sold, wherever it's I know Sam Goody's Goody got it, but anyways, wherever fine music is streamed, we're gonna coin that phrase. Anyways, so we're gonna take a short break, and when we get back, you are going to meet Trevor Tyson of Trevor Talks. We'll be right back.
Blabber Brains.
And welcome back to Blabber Brains Show, our Christmas, New Year's, what do I call this? Holiday extravaganza blowout special. Woohoo! Okay.
I think you touched it right.
And we got with us our very special guest, Trevor Tyson. Let's give him a big round of applause.
Yeah.
I'm giving myself a round of applause just for kicks and giggles.
You should. Because you're an incredible young man. I tell you what, Trevor and I met through Lacey Sturm several years ago. I think when you were announcing her at the Akron show, that seems so long ago. You know what I mean? It just seems forever ago.
It was it was 2019. Yeah, 2019 in Akron, Ohio.
And then we've met over at Lacey's house too before. So I've known you for a few years now, and the reason I wanted to have you on as a guest is because of the fact that I've just been amazed at what you've created for yourself since I've met you, right? And then the more I found out about your background, your story, and how young you are, and all this other stuff, it's like you're an anomaly because of your age and being a self-made, successful person. I say successful because you're doing what you set out to do. And, regardless of at what level you want to consider success, you're doing it, right?
Wow.
And so that includes you have your own PR. Is it a PR or marketing company? Transparent Media.
All of it.
That's marketing and PR.
All of it.
Stuff like that. But you're most widely known for being on my end and interviewing other people with Trevor Talks, and we'll talk about both of those things. But let's get a little bit of background, because like I said, I'm sure that a lot of people in our audience don't know who you are, but you've got a pretty darn big following out there. So it's not like people that you talk to on a regular basis, everybody knows you. So we want to introduce you to our crowd. And one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on there. So you live in the, just outside of Atlanta? Is that right?
Yeah, I'm about an hour east of Atlanta in a tiny town called Social Circle. It's I don't know what the census would say, but it's probably still under 3,000 people that live here.
Wow.
We have one stoplight. It's a very simple, tiny town. We just got a Waffle House. Like, this is big news.
Nice.
Breaking news. Here's the national announcement that Waffle House is now in Social Circle. It's big news.
I don't even have a Waffle House near my house.
Yeah, either do I. And I'm on the other side of town from him. Is your area more like rural farming?
Oh, yeah.
Like
yeah. Yeah, right across the street from me. It'll be funny. I'll be on like Zoom calls with clients, and there will be a cow in my yard, and I'll just flip the camera and be like, "Look at that!" Like they're like, "Is that a cornfield across from me?" Sure is. Sure is.
My brother lives right around the Stone Mountain area, so he's not too far from you. So
yeah, probably about 30-ish minutes.
Next time I'm down visiting him, we'll have to hook up or something. So I also
don't tempt me with a good time.
No, there will definitely be a good time. Trust me, involved. But I also recently found out that, I mean, I knew you guys were friends. I just didn't know how far back it went. But friend of the show and former guest on Blabber Brain show, Cindy Mothership Blankenship, you guys go way back to your teen years. Tell me about your relationship with Cindy.
Yeah, so Cindy and I met way back when, and I act like I'm like 50 or something. I'm 25. We met in my early teen years, and I like obviously lived an hour outside of the city, so getting to a concert wasn't the easiest thing in the world for me. But I met Cindy through them being fans of Skillet, and I was as well. So her daughter had did some merch pieces and art, and through watching the Skillet podcast, I found Cindy, and she ended up taking me to a bunch of concerts growing up. Winter Jam, which is where I first started serving to, I guess, kind of get on the path that I'm on today, started from volunteering at like Winter Jam events and stuff. So me and her have known each other for over a decade, and actually got to return the favor as of recently. I drove her with my mom up to Chattanooga to catch some of our friends, the protest amongst the Giants and Disciple in Chattanooga, and Cindy got to tag along with us. So
yeah,
it's kind of came full circle. It was a fun time.
That's awesome. So, okay, so let's go back to your younger days, and we'll work our way up here to present. Did you grow up in a Christian household, or how did you get involved in the Christian rock music? How did that get introduced to you? Like what was your progression as a youth?
Yeah, so I was raised up in a Christian household, but it was never like shoved down your throat. So like if we woke up on a Sunday and we didn't want to go to church, like we were going to church, but we never got corrected like, oh, you shouldn't feel that way and quit being lazy, la-di-da. It was like very casual country Christian household. I made the decision for myself probably around the age of 14 or 15 to pursue ministry for a lifestyle. And what I know that looks like for me now. At the time I was like, oh, evangelism and this and that. Now I know like everything you do in life can be a ministry of some sort, whether you're a Christian or not. Like, who are you serving? How are you serving? Like, how are you living? What are you going to do? Right. So I started going to a church here in town that was a lot more, let's just put it this way. Instead of having a choir, they had a drum kit, which was a really big deal for me. I loved it. And just getting involved with that church and hearing about Skillet and your Flyleafs and all of these things, it grew an interest in my mind. And I remember the first time I heard Skillet was on a WWE pay-per-view called Hell in a Cell. It was the song Monster that was playing. Run over to the computer, look up Skillet Monster Clean, because obviously a rock song that good has to be filthy. Like the band's not going to be a Christian band or anything like that. But to my surprise, they were. And from there, I just like became a lifelong fan of Skillet. And had my mom take me to one of their concerts. Luckily, got to meet the violinist. I thought I was on cloud nine. And from that point on in 2010, it was like, okay, I'm really into this stuff. Like I'm overly into it, like joining fan clubs, buying merch with money I didn't have, just all the good stuff, right?
Right.
And so from that point on, it was like, okay, Cindy took me to Winter Jam, got to volunteer at Red's booth. But all these little opportunities that I was getting at the time, I didn't realize what was happening, but it was networking and just slowly networking, like from merch on up, learning just about every single aspect of a live event, from seeing the people that work for the venue all the way up to the people on stage, like just never having an intention with what I was doing, but knowingly like I need to like get involved somehow. So if they're not going to let you in the front door, you got to kick your way in through the back. And that's how I jokingly say I got in. It's like, you serve your butt off, and if God's really called you to do what you're actively pursuing and pressing forward on, he's going to make sure that you hit the right doors. And so just kicking them in, had no expectations. And now it's like my career path. And to that, it's just like a whole testimony of, oh, you're from a tiny town. How are you able to do this? Like, don't you need to live in Nashville, this or that? No, like, in today's day and age, you have an internet connection. I'm assuming both of you are in Pennsylvania, Ohio area.
We're both in Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah. So you're in Pittsburgh, and we're able to have a phone call right now, just like we're in front of each other, having a conversation via Zoom. So it's all about, are you going to chase this thing because you want it, or are you called to do it? And if it's because you want it, better make sure that's exactly what you want. Because if you get there and it's a little bit darker than you thought it was going to be, you're in for a world of trouble. So like, I just felt the call at a young age, had crazy interest in the music scene for launch strategies and things I didn't even have words for at the time. But the big thing was I would look up like interviews on YouTube with John Cooper and even Lacey, Sturm, like all these people that I looked up to in the music world, and I would hear their words and be strongly encouraged by it. So now being in my 20s and being able to provide that content to people on a little bit bigger scale is just a full circle moment. It's a dream come true. And it wasn't easy, and we're not exactly where I see it ending yet, but like, I really feel drawn and called to do exactly what we're doing. So just a little bit of encouragement for anybody out there. Like, if you're doing it and people are persuading you elsewhere and trying to talk you out of doing it, you're probably doing the right thing. So don't listen to them.
Well, it's, you can easily look back now, even though you're still in the process of doing what you're doing, there's a sense of I'm where I'm supposed to be, but I'm probably not where I'm supposed to be yet. Like I'm not where I'm ultimately supposed to be. Yeah. And that's just, being aware that God is guiding you, your footsteps in your paths, in your career and whatever. And, just like everybody else, we're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to get off that path a little bit because we discerned improperly about something. But, it usually gets corrected and, gets back on the right path. But, so when you're getting involved with the bands, okay, I know you're working the merch tables and stuff like that. At what point in time did you feel as though you're in the middle of all this, but then at what point in time do you say, this is like, I got to do something with this more than just helping out at concerts and at merch tables? I got to do something else. Like, how old were you when that notion came to you?
14 or 15 years old. And I'm still not above doing merch. In fact, if you find me at a show that I'm attending and I know the people, you'll see me at the merch table at some point throughout the night, just because I get antsy and I'm like, they could be selling a lot more if they would do this. So I'll just get out of the way, like move, let me do it. And there's a joke that runs around in some of the band circles that my name is Trevor Bundles, because I'll just bundle everything. It's like, oh, you want one of everything? Like run some numbers real quick. Like, we'll do it for this, So bartering, and I'm the king of coaching artists. Like, if you want a really good merch person, you should probably put them on a commission. Just think outside the box, go after it, figure it out. And yeah, all the fuel that got put on that fire started at merch tables and such. So even before I met Cindy, there was a local band called Crystal Padilla Music, and it was a worship band. And I would travel with them at mostly Spanish churches where they didn't speak Spanish at all, or I didn't. And I'd be selling merch and using Google Translate, figured out it was a fun time. And I contribute some of those early years to figuring out okay, not everybody's going to listen to you. So you need to get used to that and get used to talking to a brick wall and having a successful pitch or this or that. For the first several years, nobody wanted to hear a word I had to say. And I didn't look at it in that way. I was just okay, I got to overcome this obstacle some way or another. So you just start crafting your mold a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, and then it snowballs into something else. So if you're doing something right now and you're on the right path, but it's not working out for you, hold fast. You'll figure it out eventually.
You almost sound like a musician, and just how you've been talking about everything from doing the merchandising and everything like that. You sound like a musician who's trying to break into the music business.
It's funny because I work with a lot of bands for launching their records, concepting, announcements, launch strategy, all that stuff. But I kind of view Trevor Talks as it's a brand. So is a band. A band is a brand. So it's the same thing, really, except for artists get compensated on streams, podcasters and folks obviously don't. So their business model is okay, how much merch can we sell? How many tours can we get? And how many, like, how much stream revenue can we build up? For podcasters, it's like, okay, we got to get some sponsors. Maybe we'll get some affiliate links eventually, but it's never been about money for me. And most bands that make it really successful, it was never about money for them either. And most of the bands that we're working with now are exactly doing that. Like, hey, we don't really care if we ever make a dime. Like, we just want to encourage people. And it's the same thing that I stay like in that lane for myself. Once you get your eyes off of what you've really been chasing and business comes into it, it gets a little bit cloudy. But once you fight through that, you realize like, okay, there were some clouds there, but maybe you need to hover above the clouds or go a little bit lower to figure out where that clarity is for your brand. So whether it's throwing marketing money into it, creating strategies, branding your craft, like, it's all a process. Learn to enjoy the ride.
Well, then Trevor Talks kind of evolved, right? You started it off as just like these little sound bites that you would get on there and talk about a multitude of different things, whatever happened to be on your mind, and it was very short little segments.
Very short.
And then you transitioned that to an actual podcast show where you were talking more at length, and then you started interviewing people. At like, who was the first guest you had on that just blew everything up for you?
Man, that's such a good question. And the answer is actually going to surprise you. The first person I ever called to do an episode with me was Shari Rigby, who's a Christian actress.
Yeah, she told me about that, by the way. I know Shari, yeah. So she did tell me about that. Yeah.
Yeah, like, she was the first person I called. And honestly, we had some big guests, like, right out of the gate. We had Shari, Matt Hammett from Sanctus Real. Like, I called in a bunch of friends. And then, like, the 6th episode was one of my bucket list guests, which was Jake Lures from the band August Burns Red. But surprisingly, the bigger the names got, the lower the downloads got. So I had to earn whatever notoriety or whatever it is, perspective from people. Like, I had to earn the fan base just as everyone else does. It doesn't matter how big the guest is. If you don't have like credibility, notoriety, or a voice, or like just a unique perspective on something, it doesn't matter who you get. And a lot of times your guest doesn't share it as often. So you're literally building something from the ground up. And you hit the nail right on the head with, it started as like short sound bites. I'll just have something on my mind to make a video about it, put it on Facebook. And that's where the first initial traction came from. But Trevor Talks was a thing before the podcast, right, but it was not as successful of a thing. I had tried to do a daily show there for a while. Obviously, even thinking about that, like, makes my head want to explode now, like, way too much work. Can't do that. But even when I was on tour with Lacey, and then after that, it was touring with Mercy Me, like, the podcast wasn't a thing there. Like, Trevor Talks was a brand. Like, the guy that does the Mercy Me's merch would see me in the hallways and start just a jingle, Trevor Talks, like, just singing and being funny. But it wasn't until COVID shut down tour that I flew straight home and was like, okay, I got to start this thing. Like, I knew for the longest time what I wanted to do. I just never did it because I never had the time. So then we have a global pandemic. We can't tour anymore. And I fly home and start a podcast, and the rest is history. And there was never like one guest that just changed everything. In fact, the first maybe 40 episodes, I'd get on a good week, like 10 downloads.
Yeah. Well,
and
that's, the amazing thing is seeing like where you started and where you're at right now. I mean, like, as Mark and I started this show for the same reasons. He and I used to hang out at a cigar bar and just blab away and talk. It's a lot of times we call the show Blabber Brains because a lot of times it was insightful and in-depth conversations. It wasn't just fluff, like talking about what you stepped in today or something like that, or how bad work was or anything like that. There was more in-depth conversations. So, and people seem to be entertained by our talk. So that's when we transitioned to this show. But we're still trying to build our base. We on any given show we have anywhere from 4 to 10,000, views on our episodes.
Incredible.
Well, yeah, but that's not translating to followers. But you got
correct.
Like, how many followers you got on Facebook? Like 35,000 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I mean, you got a lot. You got a lot of followers. So I'm gonna have to talk to you off the air sometime about what your success was as far as that goes.
It's vulnerability, but not for the sake of vulnerability. Somebody said this the other day, and I can't remember who it was. It may have been Adam from Saint Asonia, or somebody brought up, like, you don't be vulnerable for the sake of being vulnerable. You be vulnerable for the sake of helping someone else through it.
Right.
And that's like the method, I guess. Like when I started opening up about my struggles with anxiety and depression, and I had a clothing brand for a little while called Fear is a Liar. Like it was talking about that. Yeah.
Shortly, by the way.
So like I just got vulnerable about the struggles I was going through, and living in such a small town, it was actually frowned upon for the longest time. Like a guy being open about anxiety, like, oh, you're a big baby, you're a wuss, like grow up, quit being whatever. Like I heard it. And then the people that were saying that end up in therapy for themselves and thanking me years down the line.
Wow.
Yeah,
so
just what you were just saying about as far as dealing with that in a small town, it's sort of even though it's the same situation, but a completely different story. Like I grew up in the mill towns. I live 5-7 minutes away from where the old mills here in the Pittsburgh area used to be. And sort of that whole stigma as far as depression and anxiety is looked at exactly the same way as you're saying is from just living in a small town. And here I'm living here near a city at one time that was this pretty much the steel capital of the world. And that was it's that same thing. In fact, a lot of people's parents who had that big disconnect with them as time went on ended up being that they had anxiety and depression issues, but they were taught in the environment to keep your mouth shut. And they went on for decades and decades, and finally realized it, and they're near the end of their life.
Yeah.
It's just a shame that there's all that time, whether it's, struggling with a relationship with your wife or with your children. A lot of people I know dealt with that because of the parents or the father in most cases working in that mill and everything, that hard, grueling work. And it was always that sort of thing. You just suck it up and you move on. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people, at least out my way, who have, especially older, who have lost out on a lot of life because of what you just said.
And it's simply like because they didn't know, they weren't educated on it. So when I hear people talking about their parents were hard on them when they would open up about mental health, I'm not defending the parents, but I also have that like vision in my brain of they didn't have any other way to know like how to deal with it, because it's a very new thing for people to talk about. Especially our parents grew up in a whole different generation. They didn't have all the cyberbullying and everything going on. They didn't have the world at the tip of their fingertips. So there's a lot of mental health concerns that have come up in the past few years, especially when you think about TikTok and kids getting bullied at school and then getting bullied at home for trying to be creative and stay up with trends and stuff. I remember reading a story about a girl that tragically died by suicide a few months ago that was trying to do what everybody else was doing and did a TikTok dance, I guess butchered it and didn't do it as well as everyone else. She posted it trying to fit in. That was just one of the needles on the haystack, or whatever, the straw that broke the camel's back. I'm getting all my redneck slang mixed up tonight. And it's just insane to think about. Like, I had a cell phone when I started high school, but now you have cell phones when you're in primary school, which I can't imagine. Like, it just seems very premature to give kids that. And this could be a hot take. It could not. I think within the next few years, we're going to realize that, okay, maybe they shouldn't have that access that early, or they're going to figure out parameters to help safeguard our kids from that stuff. And I'm not a father or anything yet, but just an outside perspective, it's like, you know what? these kids are getting bullied at home and at school, and we don't know if their siblings are bullying them as well, so they never get to escape it. And when you build up the courage to finally say, like, having these weird feelings in my stomach, my throat, like it feels like I'm being choked, my heart's racing, I can't think straight. People think like, oh, they're crazy, or they're overreacting to something, or maybe they're excited, or they just want attention. And it's still a very new topic, but it's something, especially in the faith-based community, that it has to be spoken up about. And I feel like that's where a lot of people have gravitated towards the show and what we're doing, specifically because there's not a lot of guys in, I guess, the rock or Christian music world talking about it. It's still very taboo. And
yeah, and along those same lines, it's funny you brought up like the Christian family, because we're actually having discussions right now about people who are interested in incorporating Lacey's film that we're working on with that teen suicide prevention mindset, but towards faith-based families, because what they found out is a lot of times these faith-based families, it comes out like it hits them by surprise. They think as long as we're going to church every Sunday and we're reinforcing that at home, that my kids are safe, they're fine. And they're not. Yeah. And their kids are facing the same problems that every other kid that's not in a Christian household faces. But maybe some signs pop up from people who aren't necessarily so religious or whatever, that are telltale signs, but for whatever reason escape the Christian family household because they just assume that their kids are fine. So I think there's a need for a special message to get out there about approaching Christian families to say, hey, just because you go to church every Sunday and you even read the Bible every day and you've reinforced it with your kids, you still got to look for the signs and be on alert, because your kids are going through the same crap that all the other kids are going through. And you got to know whenever there's a problem and have a look out for that. So I think there's a real need to have something like that, and a ministry that's focused on that. And we're working on that, and hopefully we can go somewhere with that. But so growing up with anxiety and depression, and now you look and see where you're at right now. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, but I know people that have suffered from depression and anxiety, and they do on a daily basis. I think even people that find a way to, I don't know, control is not a good word for it, live with it or deal with it.
Deal with it.
And like I said, I'm not speaking as a doctor, but it never really goes away, does it? You just learn how to deal with it. And some people deal with it better than others. Am I right in saying that?
In my case, it's something that I deal with ongoing. I mean, some people have been healed from it. Medication, therapy, like some things really just work for people. But then there's also people like myself that are actively like, I take medication, I go to therapy, I pray, but it's something that I've had to learn to gradually just get a little bit better at. And I don't beat myself up over it as much anymore. And even to the point of trying to mask that anxiety and depression with work has become an issue in my life. It's hard. When you start struggling with something, it's not just going to magically go away, and you can't get mad when it doesn't go away. You just have to keep showing up for the fight, and everybody deals with it a little bit differently. There's no one size fits all method to heal this, but I think we're on the right path. And I think just being open to have a conversation with people is going to be a huge way to just help those people that wouldn't necessarily start the conversation have it. One of the viewpoints that I have towards the podcast in general and just doing conversations like this is somebody needs to hear it. Maybe it's from me. Who am I to say that God can't use me to do that? Right. It used to be man, who the heck wants to listen to me, and having that imposter syndrome about it. And I'm I mean, I deal with it. So and not even in a cocky or arrogant way. It's just I might as well talk about it because I don't see very many other people in our lane doing it. So let's have a conversation.
you never know when that one conversation with one person and one person listening, it could affect them. It could change their life or whatever. And, we're not in the business in this life to save people, right? That's up to God. And I think there are times where we could probably do it accidentally, but it's not, but by our own knowledge. Meanwhile, God, like I said, God is using us for various reasons and various things, and he knows what he's doing. He knows he's using you as an instrument or whatever. But you might not even realize, because, you have someone listening to your show, and because of what they hear you say or someone else says, that they decide that day not to kill themselves. And you never know about that because they don't talk about it. They don't write to you. They don't say, hey, thanks for saving my life and blah, 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 whatever. You just don't know. You just got to keep on keeping on, right? You got to keep doing what you're doing, because this is what God has called you to do for right now. This is the season that you're in. And I think that's something else I wanted to say was that, I think we've had some, especially in season 3 here, we've had some pretty good guests on our show with people who are fairly well known and have big followings and stuff. And to me, it's not about how many views our videos get. It's not about how many followers we get on social media. I'm having guests on the show because I find them interesting, and I think they have a story to tell. And I think it's people that aren't necessarily, getting I don't want to say getting the spotlight on them, because most of these people have a spotlight on them. But like, I'll give you a good example, like Ricky Phillips. He's the bass player for Styx, but he's been around forever. He was in the band The Babies. He was in Bad English. And, but when people think of those bands, they're not talking about the bass player, right? They're talking about the singer. They're talking about Neil Sean, the guitar player. They're talking about Tommy Shaw or whatever. They're not talking about the bass player. So I want to talk to those people who have something to say that someone might hear and find interesting, because if I'm interested in asking them questions and interviewing them, someone else might be interested in hearing that conversation. So much, I mean, I don't want to phrase why you're doing what you're doing, but to that point, we're not making money off of doing what we're doing, at least not to sustain ourselves for a living. On having a podcast. You have to be doing it because you're getting something out of it for these interviews. Am I right?
Yeah. Like for me, it was YouTube had just become a huge thing. And when I was a preteen into my teens, I found a lot of value in seeing my favorite artists' interviews on YouTube, and then Skillet had Skillet podcasts. So like I was encouraged by those, and it was just always in the back of my mind. I remember when podcasts became a thing, and I was like, that's really interesting. And I see people's thumbnails, and I've always been fascinated with cover arts. And so now like being able to work on that and figure out what we want our brand to look like, how we want it to be communicated, the guests that we want to have on, it's like, it's a nonstop process. There's always something going on. And I just find so much hope in healing myself and having these conversations with even people that I grew up listening to that I never thought I'd have a conversation with, like Louis Giglio, for example. That was a big one for me personally, because I've been to his church on and off for the past 10 years in Atlanta, and he leads Passion Movement. Like Passion Movement's a global thing. Of course I know who Louis Giglio is. I grew up on his stuff. So that was a more recent one that was huge for me. Like, wow, like this actually happened. And now hearing you, like, you're like, oh, we just had the bass player for Styx. And I'm like, dude, my mom loves Styx. And Mom, when you hear this, just know your son's on the same show as a dude for Styx. We're doing it, okay? We're gonna do it. But it's never been about like the views and stuff. And it's easy to say that. I have got caught up in that rat race before, but you can ask like the people that work with me hands-on. That's never my concern. We want to try to get more people to watch the videos just for the reasons that we've talked about, but that's not the reason why we're doing things. Yeah, I could care less. It's more like the icing on the cake. Yeah, like we still have YouTube like interviews with people that maybe don't have as big of a name and they'll get like 20 views. And it's like, okay, should theoretically, when you think of a brand, it's like, okay, that one didn't do very well. Maybe we shouldn't do that again. But for me, I'm like, 23 people took time out of their day to watch that. And a business partner and people are like, what are you talking? It's like, hey, somebody like it. Somebody really did. And I say do it. If somebody has a story and they're willing to share it and I feel gravitated to help them share that, that's what we'll do. But I would say on average, we get somewhere, we counted a few weeks ago, it was like 25 to 30 press releases a week for people pitching people to come on the show, and we pick maybe one or two. And I remember the days where we would just have to like send out like cold emails to random emails trying to figure out who is representing whoever. But, you know, it's a very interesting thing to think about when you have so many people starting podcasts, and most podcasts don't make it past episode 7. Right. And we just put out like episode 114 or something like that. It's like, all right. And now
we do it whenever we have time. That's pretty much what we do.
Yeah. So like we don't do 52 episodes a year. There's 52 weeks in a year for those of you who haven't counted recently. I don't count a lot either, so I don't blame you. But we pretty much do weekly episodes. In December, we kind of like take some time back to reevaluate and record for the next year. So like right now we're recording for episodes that'll start coming out in January, and the lineup keeps getting more fun. And I'm just grateful to be in the room, honestly. With a lot of these conversations, it's just like, dang, like I never thought in a million years I'd be on a interview call with this person, or after an interview going out to one of their shows. Like, and it's not like, oh, look who they are. It's like, you know, I felt God prompt me and to start pursuing this in my early teen years and even preteens. So he didn't fail me. And that's a testimony from a kid from a tiny town and social circle.
Can we just be, well, I just want to ask one quick question, Mark. Just hold that thought. Sure. Because this isn't going to take long to answer. Can we just be honest with ourselves and say that Cooper Stuff is one of the most interesting podcasts on the internet? And
we can also add to that John Cooper's beard is an anomaly. Yes, and Corey Cooper is one of the coolest people on the planet. So
absolutely. And I'm trying to get Corey on our show, but it hasn't been successful yet. But so Corey, if you're watching, I want you on the show here.
She's the best, and she has the best conversations. That whole camp really is just some of the best people on the planet. And I'm not just saying that to like butter anybody's rolls or anything like that. Like, they're literally excellent people. Anybody that works with them, Christian or not, will tell you like they're good people. I haven't heard a negative thing ever about that camp. From Lacey. Don't do it.
Yeah. So what would you want to ask, Mark?
Yeah, Trevor, being that I went through some of the interviews that you've done over the last year, and I mean, you really do a great job of focusing on people's struggles and things that they've overcome. Have you, with all the people that you've had an opportunity to talk to, have you ever started, you know, just like we're doing here, we're recording a podcast, we started talking to somebody about those challenges, and maybe, you know, things aren't going for them well right now, or there's something going on where they sort of have a breakdown, or at the end of the podcast, you have said to yourself, I can't put this out there for people to see. This person's really struggling.
Am I embarrassing you right now, Mark? Is that the fit? Is that what you're trying to get
well, I would just come on and say it. But I would just assume when you get that in depth with people and start talking, I would think every now and then that you might come across someone who's, for whatever it could be that they're just having a bad day, or maybe there's really something that they're struggling with. You know, if you've ever had to say, you know, I'm not going to put this out. I'm going to reach out to them. I'm not going to put this out. I don't think this is a good thing for people to see.
That's such a great question. We've had people break down and such. And of course, we try to keep it as like raw as possible. But when we send it to them and they approve it, you know, like we've never had someone be like, hey, we can't put this out or anything like that. We've had some people make some comments that we've decided not to put out and such. But for the most part, the reoccurring thing, which is still mind-boggling to me is how many times after an interview we hear people say like, I've been doing press for like 2 weeks for this, and this has like been the best interview I've ever done in my life. And hearing that, I'm like, oh, it's nothing I did. It's like, I can't explain like there's no formula. It's just like, I literally have in my notes like a few different intros that I've written, like, thank you for tuning into Trevor Talks podcast. We talk to real people about real topics or real stories. And I'll put like a reminder for myself to shout out our sponsor for the episode. And then I'll just come up with whatever their intro is. And I have the conversation in my head. And I don't have them answering it, but just like, where could I see this going from here? But you'll see like my eyes move every once in a while, but we rarely stay on that. It's just like one time I had COVID and I was still doing interviews and I had to have something to keep my brain focused and remember what I was going to talk about. But we've never had anybody like have a full on breakdown, like wasn't okay, had to check into therapy. Of course, if that did happen, there wouldn't be a better place on the planet for them to have that. I'm literally one of those people that'll try to jump on a plane and come to you. But we haven't had that yet. I not wanting to say like I'm expecting it or anything, but we just have honest conversations and there's no algorithm with it. It's like you said, I want to talk about where you came from, the obstacles you've gone through, the struggles that you've been able to overcome, and how you got to where you are. Because what's more empowering for that person that's listening in a trailer in the middle of Montana to hear that like they're not the only one that had an abusive father and pursued their dreams. One of the stories that's really impacted me in my life is Shania Twain's story, like hearing where she came from to who she is now. Insane story. And yes, like the one guest that I want to have on my show, Shania Twain. So make it happen, Michael.
I don't blame you.
Like
that'd be a great interview. That'd be a great interview.
We'll put it in the tags, and maybe if someone will pick up on that.
Dear Shania, Trevor does not mind feeling like a woman every once in a while. Just come on a show.
Oh, geez. Well, yeah, but in today's day and age, that's not so unusual. So,
I mean, I'd have a great time, and it would be a great conversation. I can guarantee you that. I'd get some Shania merch and be ready for a good time.
Well, I don't want to, keep hammering on the obstacles you've had to overcome, but I think this could be helpful for someone, and I just want to kind of wrap up the topic with this. As you know, someone was dealing with anxiety. I guess this would lean more to the anxiety than the depression, but I'm not, like I said, I'm not a doctor. And you're thrust into being in front of crowds of people, whether it be at a merch table or like with Lacey, you introduced Lacey and, coming on the stage and stuff like that. Was that unknowingly helping you overcome things or deal with your anxiety, or did that in some way add to it? Was it more therapeutic, or did it cause you to have to like focus more on the issues?
That's a great question. One of the unique things that I experience is I'll have like crippling anxiety leading up, and then I get there and I'm fine. But it's getting there. So, for example, flying to a festival to MC in California, the drive to the airport is the crippling part for me. Once I get to the airport, I'm good. And then there's times where we're at an event and I'm puking behind the stage from panic attacks. So like that's a real thing, and I'm very open about it. I would say that the repetition of being on the road helps a lot because you get used to it. And then like now I'm in a season of not doing very many live shows. Like I may have to go through that again to get back to that. Right. So it's just a ebb and flow. You have to figure it out how it works for you. For me personally, I know I'm going to have to muscle up some courage and fight it head on again. But if there's anything, like I grow in the knowledge in my brain of like, okay, like I'm not going to let this hold me back. I got to go do this. And there's still times that I still try to dip out of things, but for the most part, I'll go down swinging. And I'm just grateful for every single opportunity, big or small, merch or on stage, whatever it is, just to be in the room, be able to see people encountering change in their life, whether they came to a rock show that they just wanted to lose themselves in a mosh pit and hear an encouraging word that they didn't know they were going to hear. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, every opportunity is an amazing opportunity if you look at it from a certain perspective. And I think it starts with your mindset. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. I mean, I think that anybody that's kind of going through this, that's at least in our audience, I just want them to know that, I know a lot of times it could feel so crippling that you can't do anything, but just get inspired that, I mean, putting yourself out there and pushing ahead and doing it is probably one of the hardest things you're going to do, but it's a great way, I think, to deal with that issue head on, because it's not going to go away by itself.
Nope.
So you either tackle it, or I would hope that you don't just curl up in a ball and just say, I'm never going out in public. And that's the big fight. I'm never going to, yeah.
That's the big fight. It's like, for me now, I'm like, okay, do I want to have anxiety here, or do I want to have anxiety there? So right. I'm either going to curl up in a ball here, or I'm going to fight through it. And then eventually throughout the night, I'll gradually start to feel better. But
that's why I want people to hopefully have hope that there are ways of dealing with it. And like I said, you may never get rid of it. You may get rid of it.
Yeah.
And
maybe
it's not impossible to get rid of your troubles, but you're more than likely going to find ways to live with it and to still live your life with it without it impeding on everything that you do. Even if it's there in the background or continually or whatever, just take hope that there's hope for you. That's what I'm trying to get at. So, okay, the last thing I probably want to touch base on is you're transitioning to transparent media. Obviously because of your involvement in I mean, you deal with more than just, Christian rock artists, but it's but that's where you kind of that's what opened the door for you to do so at what point in time did you say, I think I want to take this step to try to help other bands promote themselves and work with these people, and I think I'm the guy that can do that because I know X, Y, or Z. What was the first thing that told you that, hey, this is something I can do and something I can help with, and then convince the people to say, hey, give me your business type of thing?
Yeah. Well, it all stemmed from serving. So I had started building my brand. I was touring, but it still wasn't like making money, kind of like a podcast. Like, you can grow, but you're not going to be making a living off of it within the first few years. So I remember in 2019, it was either 2018 or 2019, I was in Quincy, California for Joshua Fest, and Lacey and Josh were there doing an acoustic that night. And that was like the first time we ever did an event together. And from that point on, it was like, okay, like when I jumped on tour with them for that show in Akron, I was like, let me handle social media. And so I kind of got like boots on the ground, was able to help them build their brand. And from that, like, they recommended me to some friends, and I worked for an agency there for a little while. And then it really just was a clear thought in my head of like, okay, you really should try to do this. And so it all started from serving, and Lacey and Josh Sturm have provided such an amazing opportunity to help them grow their brand and what they're doing. And from that, like, being recommended to other people and being able to work with some of the people that we have, even in the past year, is just mind-boggling to me, because I grew up on a ton of them. And being able to help them communicate with their audiences and communicate the message of love, hope, peace, in a lot of cases, their faith, has been amazing. And I wake up every afternoon with a smile on my face, because I don't wake up for mornings.
And you work with another Pittsburgh-ish band, and the Letter Black.
The Letter Black, we have worked with. We helped launch their album. It was either last year or the year before. And speaking of the devil, Merry Rockfest Christmas is now streaming everywhere.
There you go.
So
yeah, they're from Uniontown, just outside of Pittsburgh. They consider themselves a Pittsburgh band, but they're really about an hour outside of Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Well, they're a great band, so they need to do some more Pittsburgh shows for you.
They don't play here. I saw them one time at a bar that's no longer open right up the street from here, called the Altar Bar, and they played with Love and Death, who you also have worked with, and who else was in that lineup? I think was a 1,000-Foot Crutch.
That was
wow, that was a big lineup.
It was a great show, and there was one other band I think thrown in there that's I can't remember right now, but anyways, it was a really good show, really good lineup. It was We As Human was also part of that lineup. So again, they kind of blew me away, but yeah, you get to work with the Protest. You get to work with, why don't you name some other people that you work with? Love and Death, we said.
The Whosoevers, which is kind of a bunch of the musicians together in a collective. Sonny from POD has a nonprofit called Youth of the Nation Foundation, and we've been able to help get that off the ground with them. John Schneider played Bo Duke on the Dukes of Hazzard. That's the big round, like a circle moment here, because they filmed Dukes of Hazzard in my town, and I never in a million years thought I'd ever have a conversation with a guy. And we're helping him watch movies. He's just a good old boy, Right. So, and then we've been able to serve with so many amazing people that I grew up listening to, and then even new friends that we've been able to work with. So we're also in the process now of rolling out, or the beginning stages of rolling out something that's going to be super historic for a certain band. And it's pretty incredible. So I'm excited, and most people would assume it's Flyleaf, and no, it's not them. We are working with Lacey and such. It's not a Flyleaf, similar genre, but just there's some very amazing songs, collections, tours. There's so many amazing things that are going to be happening in the year 2023. So we're excited to be a part of the conversation.
I can't wait to see what you got coming. So what do you got coming up next for the Christmas season here and New Year's? What do you got going on?
Well, Cutlass just put out a single called End of the World, which is a 6-minute song. Yeah. A 6-minute song.
I listened to it. It's fabulous. It's fabulous.
James Mead, John Micah Summerall, and Josiah Prince from Disciple. And he also owns The Ranch, which is a studio in Nashville.
Oh, I know. He's killing it.
Crushing it. And Cutlass released a almost 6-minute song called End of the World. And
good to hear him rocking hard again.
Oh yeah. So Words of Fire, End of the World is out. And so much more on the horizon. It's so awesome to see all these super crafty people come together and like, man, we really just want to make an impact. And it's like, all right, well, if we can help, we'd love to. If not, like, we'd love to pray for you and support you along the way. So it's never about how can I earn your business? It's like, man, that's pretty cool. Like, I think we have some ideas that might be able to work for this. And then we just start from there. I never want to sound too salesy. It's just like, I'll get a phone call and we'll start brainstorming, and then it turns into a business partnership and being able to help be a part of these projects with people that are a lot cooler than I am. So it's fun. Cool.
Yeah. And, you and I will be talking more. There's something I told you that God put on my heart, but I'm not sure still how to, I've got some more insight on how to possibly go about that I'll have to talk to you about. And people right now are saying, well, what are you talking about? I'm not going to tell you what I'm talking about because it's way too early, way too premature.
You can wait and figure it out with everybody else.
That's right. Just wait like everybody else.
Like Mark. Mark has no clue.
He has no clue what I'm talking about.
I don't have any clue. I'm clueless.
What do I know?
As usual.
All right,
what do I know? Nothing.
Let's when people want to follow you, is it Trevor Talks everywhere on all social media? Where can they find you? We'll toss it up there.
It's Trevor Talks across the board. The main website is trevortalks.co or .co. All the links are there. So wherever you like to binge podcasts or videos, YouTube, all that good stuff, just type Trevor Talks and it'll show up.
Cool. And then Transparent Media is just your side business. There's like nothing.
It's really the main businance. Transparent Media.
I don't mean to say it like that. I just mean to say that you're not like, I don't know what the right words I'm saying. Like you're not trying to. If there's any bands or any entertainment companies that are watching this and you need someone to help do your marketing and promoting, go to Transparent Media and reach
Yeah,
out to
transparentmedia.co.
Okay, we'll
you
throw
can
that
look
up
it up
there too.
and, you know, if send it out. We're pretty full and that's a blessing. It won't always be that way, but we do try to get back to everybody as soon as we can. But man, this conversation has just been, feels like I just got out of therapy, and I think it's mostly because of Mark, but it's just been a good time.
It's hard to shut him up sometimes. So
yeah, too loud.
So yeah, everybody check out Trevor, you know, and the links that we've shown you. You're not going to be disappointed. You don't need to tease anybody that's coming up in case you don't want to give that stuff away. So just follow him and keep an eye out for his upcoming guests, because he's always talking to somebody fascinating and interesting. So we hope you learned a little bit about this amazing guy. And you're just getting started, man. You're 25. You're a baby still. You're a baby.
Like an old man. 25.
You know, here I will say one thing before we sign off. You know, I think that my introduction to Christian music was such a cool journey, right? Like that's kind of like you kind of, it hit you as a teenager, so you kind of grew up with that, right? Mm-hmm. Like I grew up like in the 80s and the 80s hair metal bands and stuff like that, right? And that type of rock music. And then I just, once that all faded away and I never got into grunge, I was just like, I guess I got to keep listening to this 80s music, and I'm going to seem so dated. And then I did hear Skillet, and I'm like, wait a second, you can sing about Jesus Christ and God and rock out like that. I mean, other than Stryper, but Stryper was totally different. Stryper to me was a hair metal band, right? Even though they were singing about God and all that other stuff. And they never came across as like their own thing, even though they kind of were doing their own thing. I'm talking in circles right now, but to have this eye-opening experience of I can be current, I can be in today's world, and I can listen to this music. And I mean, I started listening to Red and Disciple and Decipher Down and on to, you know, 1,000 Foot Crutch, you name it. They just started powering on Demon Hunter. And I'm just like, to me, this was life-changing and game-changing. So I can say I can rock out hard and still praise the Lord. So,
yeah.
So in all of that, what I'm trying to say is you should probably be a little bit jealous of me in my journey. So, but I'm just kidding.
I'm jealous, dude.
I'm
just to come off of you mentioning Stryper, they were a little before my time, but like they just put out.
Make me feel old.
They were a lot before your time.
They were a lot before my time. I was being generous, and you ruined it. That's on you.
You probably weren't even born yet.
I was not. I popped out of the womb in '97. They just put out like some actually really heavy stuff. Like that's not your hair metal type. It's almost like, are these dudes dipping into metalcore? And I was so excited. Oz Fox, their guitar player, his wife Annie Lobert has an amazing nonprofit called Hookers for Jesus. Everybody should check them out. They're amazing. Yeah. So amazing.
Or go see her I Am Second video. It's an amazing story, much like Brian Head Welch's story is amazing, much like Lacey's story is amazing, much like your story is amazing. So we're glad to have had you on Blabber Brains here and let people know your background, your story. And I was really happy to have you on the show here. And like I said, hopefully, you know, you get a few more followers out of this that you didn't have before. So anyways, so for Trevor Tyson and the Big M over there, and I am Michael Kadrie, we will catch you next time on Blabber Brain Show, and have a happy New Year and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yes.